There's been about 4 projects, and within those more broken up. But the main project that I've been working on in this time that has been probably the most life-changing project has been writing about 3 black female sculptors, both living and dead. Nancy Elizabeth Prophet, Augusta Savage, and Barbara Chase Rebu, excuse me. All black women, all from the States, and all at some point came to Paris. Some went back and some have stayed here. And interacting with their work, all of them were sculptors, so interacting with their work as artists and then interacting with their lives. As far as with Barbara, being actually able to sit down and speak with her and talk about her creation as both a poet and a writer and a sculptor. And I think the project has been incredibly interesting because in my conversation yesterday with Barbara and in the work that I've been doing, the history of black artists, the history of black intellectuals, the history of anything black is quite condensed. And there's a lot of people that, unless you go out and do something like this where you're going to explore those names, you don't ever quite find out about those people or hear about those people or know about those lives. And there is a fascinating legacy that has been around for, at this point, over 100 years of black female artists coming to Paris, creating in Paris, going to New York, creating there, going around the world and creating, that as a young black artist in an art school is something that I have yet to learn until this internship. One thing that I found really interesting about these black women, of course their work is profound, but there's something really fascinating to me about their lives, the trajectory of their lives, and how their lives really impacted their work. And one thing that's become quite clear to me is the need for these black women to leave New York and to come to Paris to create. And even the ability to be in Paris and put their work out with their own name, opposed to being in the States and not even being allowed to, it's not even being allowed to, but the only way to find success for most of them would be to go and to have somebody else who normally was a white man to show their art. I've always been fascinated with Paris, but again, it's just something that I never knew about. I never truly knew the history of black people in Paris, creating in Paris, and the reason why. And being here in Paris, because of course I could have done this research and written about these women and not been here, and it would not have been the same experience at all. Because I think that in all of their lives, when you're reading about their lives or you're interacting with their work or you're looking at their work in timelines, you see that the energy of Paris that I was talking about earlier, the diversity, the allowing to just be seen as an artist and as a person in Paris is completely different than the United States. And of course, France does it not have blood on its hands. France is not, it's not as if France, we know that they were colonizers and that there was slavery. And it's a very different interaction in my experience with that history here than it is in the United States. And so, since I've been here, I felt racial profiling. Since I've been here, I've seen it interact with other people. You meeting people that have grown up here, especially children of young African immigrants, especially from countries colonized by France. There is still prejudice. It's not a perfect world, but the interactions with race relations in the United States opposed to the interactions here are completely different. And the history of artists and the culture of artistry here, while there is that culture in New York, it's very different. And I think something too that has been very interesting in researching these women is how history condenses the lives of these women and washes the lives of these women to be something that it's not. Again, it's something, if I had not been working on this project for so long and really interacting with these women every day and their stories every day and finding new pieces, because they're not written about in the same way that men are or white women are, and they were creating at the same time and have the same body of work as a lot of, you know, other artists that were coming here at the time. But there's always something new that I'm finding out that is making more sense. And I think the most important part of this is, even though I'm not a sculptor and visual arts is not my medium, but it's still an artistic legacy that I've been exploring through these months, and so, or through this month and prior to that in reading about these women. So working on that, as well as embodying their lives and their stories and getting to create work in their words is a humbling experience. I'm not a playwright and I work with other people's words all the time, but it is incredibly humbling to go into the life and the body of somebody else as an actor, and then again as a poet, and to be able to write their stories and envision how they're feeling. I mean, these are, you know, some of the most important, in my opinion and from my understanding, some of the most important artists, some of the most important sculptors who weren't given the space to create in the way that they should have, but to be able to work in their voices has been one of the most humbling experiences I think I've ever had.